Hi, Dr. Westman here with another episode of Dr. Westman Reacts. And I'll be reacting to Dr. Mike on diets and ketogenic diets. Dr. Mike is a YouTube influencer, best I can tell, is a osteopath doctor. Not sure if he's in private practice, definitely not at a university, but let's see what Dr. Mike has to say about keto diets.
What the heck is ketogenic diet?
Quickly lose weight.
Fats with benefits.
Satiates your appetite.
Ketosis.
Ketosis.
Butter is good.
Explain yourself.
The ketogenic diet. Let's break down what all this hype is about. I'm gonna tell you what it is, briefly how it works, and discuss some of the claims that are most commonly made on the subject. Let's get started. Before we get into the ketogenic diet, let's break down some very simple nutrition basics. There are three major macronutrient groups that we're gonna be paying attention to: proteins, fats, and carbs. These are nutrients that you find in the foods you eat every single day. The standard American diet consists of 35% of fats, 15% of proteins, and 50% of carbs. Now, if you're looking at the ketogenic diet, the numbers are quite different, with 75% being fats, 20% being proteins, and only 5% being carbs. Think about that. That's 10 times less carbs than in the standard American diet.
Is that necessarily a bad thing, that there are fewer carbs than the standard American diet? He's implying that it's different, therefore it must be bad, when actually just because it's different just means it's just different. You know, and macronutrient really just means there's a lot of it that you're eating in terms of grams or kilograms. Micronutrient is just a trace or milligram or even less than that. So an element that you eat a lot of is called a macronutrient. If you don't eat carbs at all, carbs are not a macronutrient for you. Proteins and fats are. So it's not like everyone has to have all three macronutrients. Macronutrient just means that there's a lot of it in your diet. Well, so let's see how it works.
Let's say you switch from your standard diet to a ketogenic diet. What happens inside of your body? Your body deals with this very low carb consumption in two ways. First, it enters a state called ketosis, which shifts your body's energy source to primarily fats, which basically means that it breaks down fats into something known as ketones, hence ketosis, and then uses those for energy. Simply put, your body begins to burn fat as its primary energy source and moves away from glucose, which is a carbohydrate. The process of going into ketosis does take a few days, and during those days, people experience some adverse side effects: brain fog, irritability, nausea, GI discomfort. Some people label this the keto flu.
I don't feel so good.
The second process...
Well, hang on. Most people don't get the keto flu. Most people feel fine. And I wish it was called headache and fatigue and it lasts a few days and most people don't get it, rather than the keto flu and you shouldn't try it. So most people don't get it. The other interesting thing is nausea is not part of a keto diet when you're eating real food. That's something that I only started seeing when people were doing the internet keto thing, adding oils and bulletproof coffee and medium chain triglyceride and other. So don't add oils, or if you're having nausea, don't think it's the food or the diet. It may be these other things that you're adding that aren't real foods. And it's not really typical to add butter to coffee, for example, or medium chain triglyceride or coconut oil. These are all internet keto kinds of things. So headache and fatigue for a few days, sure, and maybe 1 in 100 people might actually have what was kind of a syndrome like a flu with muscle aches, but it's short-lived, and the benefits beyond that are pretty amazing. That fat burning that Dr. Mike talks about. The second process the body uses is
The second process your body uses is gluconeogenesis, which sounds scary, but it's really not. All it is your body creating glucose, because not all cells can function on fats alone. Fun fact here, for survival purposes, you don't need to consume any carbs as long as you're getting enough fats and proteins.
I like I like his grounding.
Where did all of this hype for the ketogenic diet come from? Let's take a look at the claims and find out what's true and what's not. Claim number one, the ketogenic diet is good for weight loss. Yeah, the ketogenic diet is good for weight loss, and this happens through two important mechanisms. First, since you're using fats as your primary energy source, you're burning a lot of stored fat. Second, because fat is very satiating, makes you feel full, when you eat a high fat content meal, you actually don't want to eat as much, therefore you limit the amount of calories you take in throughout the day. A lot of people are surprised that when they start the keto diet, that they lose weight very quickly. But that's a little misleading because the majority of the weight loss initially comes from water loss, not fat loss. For those of you seeking—
Well, I wouldn't say it's misleading. The water loss is a good thing. You want to lose the water. Some people might lose 1 to 2 pounds per week consistently. That's what I typically see. So that's 4 to 8 pounds per month, 50 to 100 per year. And then if you lost 5 to 10 pounds the first week, you might be losing water weight too. So you don't, I just tell people don't expect that rate of loss. I don't know that it's misleading, but no one claimed that you would lose a certain amount. I don't even like the term claims because this is just what the science says.
For those of you seeking long-term weight loss, the ketogenic diet is not super sustainable. It's graduation.
Well, so I disagree. For a lot of people, the keto diet is sustainable. And it depends how you learn it, depends how you do it. And if you learn using real food, not a lot of fake food, and you're not, you're not super strict, like every now and then you might go off and you just get back on. So there's an interesting sort of idea that if you are on a certain diet, like a keto diet, you can't ever stray. But if you're doing a Mediterranean diet, it's okay to stray here and there. That's kind of a weird false choice that if you're on a certain you have a certain eating pattern. Most people eat off it and then get back to it. And while it's true that you wouldn't be in ketosis if you had carbs, that I don't think the goal is to have to be in ketosis every moment of the day. That seems kind of almost militant, and I try to teach a more relaxed version, a relaxed approach that just keeps the carbs really low and doesn't worry too much. It doesn't focus too much on ketosis. So, well, let's see what Mike says.
All your friends are going to get ice cream. Some of them are getting a cookies and cream milkshakes. And you can't have any because you're on a keto diet? That's crazy. You have to be super vigilant when you're on the ketogenic diet because carbs have this nasty habit of just sneaking into your foods. Ketchup.
So again, I'm not sure if you're doing a keto diet for epilepsy, and some children will have a seizure disorder because they're unable to take glucose into the brain. These kids have to be very strict and have to be in ketosis all the time. If you're doing this for weight loss or for reversal of diabetes or some other metabolic problem, you don't have to be that militant and that strict about it. I don't even have people check ketones because it's not the main focus. Keeping the carbs really low and having the hunger go away and eating less is the focus.
Ketchup, high carb food, apples, bananas, cookies and cream milkshakes. Well, I just love cookies and cream milkshakes. And so
Dr. Mike, go ahead and have a cookies and cream milkshake every now and then, but not every day. Well, it depends on what you're trying to do. If you were trying to lose weight and you wanted maximal fat burning, then you'd want to keep the carbs really low because you have to burn through those carbs before your body's going to burn its own fat. And that's the goal when you're trying to lose fat weight. So at 329, I don't think you have to be as strict or alarmist as Dr. Mark.
So much for having a celebratory drink with your friends. No to alcohol.
Well, and that's just not true. You can have alcohol. You have to moderate it, however. You have to burn through the alcohol and then through the carbs before your body is going to burn its own fat. So I think he's giving the super strict like keto diet for epilepsy version of this, which is not what I teach.
The ketogenic diet is good for the brain. The truth of the matter is, the jury's still out on this one because science hasn't given us the answer. The research on this area just hasn't been completed yet. Anecdotally, some people say they feel more focused or sharper when they're ketogenic diet, but I've also heard from patients of mine that they feel foggier and that keto flu stays with them much longer than anticipated. So I don't like using anecdotes as reasons why a certain diet is good or not. I need quality research, which I just don't have.
The research actually is in animal models and in preliminary studies of humans where the science is actually looking promising to use a keto diet. And I wouldn't write off, like Dr. Mike is saying, as of 2022, we don't have clinical trials saying that this is good for the brain, like preventing Alzheimer's or Parkinson's or even as a treatment for those things. But the mere fact that it's being studied is pretty amazing. That's come a long way, and that the mechanism actually looks like it will be promising, and that just to know that that's in the pipeline is good to know about it. But he's right. I wouldn't, as a policy, say that a keto diet's good for the brain yet. Although remember, if you don't think diet can affect the brain, those children who have epileptic seizures who are put on a keto diet and the seizures go away, that's the brain being affected by the food that you eat. So in general, ketones have a calming effect generally in these children with seizures.
Number 3, the keto diet prevents or manages many chronic diseases. This is a yes and no answer. Where keto diet really shines is in type 2 diabetes.
Absolutely.
Because when you have type 2 diabetes, you have insulin sensitivity issues, you have high sugar content in the blood, and research has shown over and over again that the ketogenic diet for type 2 diabetes works. We have to talk about childhood epilepsy because that's where the keto diet actually got its roots. We can actually...
So again, no, there were these sort of cousins or related dietary approaches. The epilepsy treatment that was Johns Hopkins, well, still is different, and it's much stricter. And the diet that I use and teach for reversing diabetes and obesity and other metabolic problems has its roots in what's called the Banting diet. The Banting diet was started in London, England in the 1860s, and then by the 1920s, the Osler textbook of medicine had the low-carb diet, not ketogenic diet for epilepsy. So maybe that's why he thinks you have to be super strict, is that he thinks that the beginning of this was from the ketogenic diet for epilepsy, and it's not what I teach. These are related, but not the same.
Ketogenic diet to children who have refractory epileptic seizures. And what we find is once they get into a state of ketosis, they have a decreased frequency of these seizures. It works, it's proven, it's evidence-based science. The ketogenic diet has shown some promise in the field of oncology, aka cancer. It's not ready to be a prime time cancer treatment just yet, and the research doesn't fully support it to be a preventive measure for developing cancer. But what we do know is that some promise is there and more research needs to be done. Some harms that can stem from following a ketogenic diet, nutritional deficiencies from cutting out large food groups, an increase in your bad LDL.
That's not true. We've been following people on a low-carb keto diet. If it's properly formulated, you get all the nutrition, the micronutrients that you need. Remember, you don't need to eat carbohydrates. So that's concerning to me that he just kind of signs off on that one. The increase in bad cholesterol, well, let's see what he says.
Cholesterol, kidney issues?
Well, so number 2, turns out we're in a paradigm shift looking at the cholesterol in the blood. We're going from the old total cholesterol LDL view to the new triglyceride HDL, abdominal circumference, blood sugar, blood pressure, something called metabolic syndrome. And it's an area of active research to see if increases in LDL cholesterol are still or are bad if you're eating a low carb diet without carbohydrates. I think the jury's out on that one, actually. And kidney issues actually is one of these myths and prejudice against the diet that just is not true.
Cholesterol, kidney issues, bone issues, and even the
neither are the bone issues. These are all kind of prejudging
piece of some certain cancers when you're overeating foods like processed or red meats. My final thoughts on the keto diet.
And number 5 is totally theoretical, and I don't believe the over generalization and the statements about processed meats and red meats is a large effect, if there is one at all. That comes from nutritional epidemiology studies. So that's too bad, that last slide. Sorry, Mike.
I think it's a good diet for weight loss. I think it's better for short-term weight loss than long-term weight loss. So if you have a wedding that you're getting ready for, some kind of big event.
I totally disagree. I've seen people lose hundreds of pounds on a low-carb diet, doing it in a relaxed manner, not as super strict as he's talking about, and then every now and then having a cookies and cream ice cream. Fine, go ahead. Just don't do that for the whole month. You're not going to lose weight. But that's too bad that he's focusing on just the short term, and it's not uncommon for those who haven't been using it in a clinic. I've been using it and studying it for over 20 years now. And what I did was basically on the shoulders of people like Dr. Atkins and Dr. Eads, Dr. Rosedale, Dr. Bernstein. So
kind of big event that's upcoming and you're otherwise healthy, I don't think it's a bad diet to go on. The fact that the diet is very difficult to adhere to because of how much you have to drastically change your eating patterns, of the possible adverse effects that can come from following the diet, and frankly, from the lack of knowledge and the lack of research we have on its long-term effects, all put into question and really encourage me to not recommend this diet to the majority of my patients and to you.
Dr. Mike, I recommend this to all of my patients who want to reverse obesity, diabetes, and even want to lead a healthy lifestyle. It turns out that the hunter-gatherer, the paleo-primal idea that humans had evolved to eat a low-carb diet, to me, gives me more credence and more believability in what I'm asking people to do, compared to other sorts of dietary patterns where we really have no evidence about a total vegan diet. We have no data on people over this last generation because it really hadn't been thought of and put together. So I was really thinking he nailed this one, and now I'm sorry about that. Yeah, no, so the common misunderstanding that the keto diet, when used for diabetes and obesity and general health, really didn't come from the keto diet for epilepsy, ketogenic diet. The term we've used in our research is called carbohydrate restriction. So if you're searching for medical journal articles, look up carbohydrate restriction, not ketogenic diet for epilepsy, and you'll see the data. Dozens of studies now, at least out to a year or two, which is probably the best we have on any dietary pattern. But I think Dr. Mike gets a thumb up here in getting all the biochemistry correct, understanding how it works. But then I think the one thumb down because of the lack of understanding of how it can work for the long run and lack of clinical depth and understanding. That I've been teaching this at the Obesity Medicine Association now for about 10 years, and other doctors are using this, and eating meats and poultry, fish and shellfish and eggs as your main source of nutrition is just actually pretty tasty and sustainable for a lot of people. It's not for everyone, but for a lot of people it is sustainable. And I hope that's helpful. And of course, look down below for the top 10 tips on starting keto right, and down in the description. Till the next time. If you enjoyed this video, be sure to like, subscribe, and hit the notification bell, and check out adaptyourlifeacademy.com.